Okay, take a second and look down at your feet. Actually, the shoes you may be wearing. Do you realize the shoes you wear may be affecting your health, leading to a sore back and even aching feet? And no one enjoys that. So to make those feet jump for joy, let me clear the floor and introduce Dr. Vera Gupta.
We all know the story about Cinderella and her glass slipper. A beautiful glass slipper, has a nice 2-inch heel. We also know that shoe was not made by a chiropractor, because if it was, we would not have a 2-inch heel on it. If we were to pick up Cinderella's shoe, we'd also notice a few other things. Let's say she'd been wearing the shoe for a while, it would develop what's called a wear pattern. We would see how her foot fits in the shoe. If you pick up my shoe, you can immediately see my wear pattern. If you look at the bottom of my shoe, you can see the outside rim of my shoe has been worn away. That's because I'm what's called an overpronator. I have a tendency to roll my foot when I walk. Don't believe me? Let's pick up another one of my shoes. Here's my running shoe. You can see it again on the outside. Let's pick up my very oldest shoe. Here it is. Again, you'll see that same wear pattern. That's also why when someone tells you, especially like a mom or a sister, don't wear my shoes, you're going to change the way they fit, they're absolutely right, because we each have a different wear pattern. If you're wearing the outside of your shoe, you're an overpronator. If you're wearing the inside of your shoe, you're an oversupinator. If you don't have a wear pattern, then you have what we call a neutral foot. So, going on Cinderella's shoes, if I was to design one of her shoes, this is a shoe I would not have picked. This shoe has absolutely no support whatsoever. Your foot would not be very happy in this. I'd rather you go barefoot, because this shoe does not support the arch of the foot. One of the scariest things I'm seeing these days is 8- and 9-year-old children who are having foot problems. It's because the arch of the foot is elastic, and if you don't support it properly, that elasticity breaks down, like a rubber band breaks down over time. If you keep stretching it, the arch of the foot does the same thing. So this is never a shoe I would put Cinderella in. So now let's say Cinderella wanted a different shoe. I also wouldn't put her in this shoe, because when you wear a shoe like this, you're shortening the calf. As soon as you go to stand up, your foot's at an incline, so it shortens your calf muscle up. If Cinderella said to me, I really need to have an open-footed shoe, it's not the prettiest flip-flop you'll ever see, but it is the most functional. This has an arch in it. True, your toes are still grabbing at the front of the shoe, but at least there's an arch support. This also doesn't just bend in the middle. So if you have to wear a flip-flop, which we don't recommend to begin with, the only one I'd go with is something like an Okabashi type flip-flop, where it has an arch support. You can literally just Google flip-flop with arch support, and these will come up. Now let's say I could talk Cinderella into a shoe that wasn't a flip-flop. I would definitely go for a shoe like this. This is a hiking shoe. It has a really great arch support. You'll also see it has a different color in the middle of it. That different color tells me that this middle support of the shoe is made of a different material that doesn't bend. If you're someone with a high arch, you have to have that in the middle of your shoe, because already your arch is so high that not supporting it will collapse it even more. If you're a runner, you should always look for a shoe that has that same special color in it. And especially for runners, you have to change your shoes every 3 to 4 months. Whether they look like they're broken down on the outside or not is irrelevant. They break down from the inside. This is the last shoe I'd put Cinderella in, but a lot of women like the heel. If you have to get a shoe with a heel, then definitely go for a shoe that has the widest heel that you can find. The pointier it is, the less stable you are. So now that we've gone through Cinderella's footwear, her feet might be aching after we actually took her foot out of the shoe. Let's look at what she could do for her feet. Your feet should function almost like hands. They should have that ambidextrous quality where you can grab things with them. Granted, you're not going to use your feet for that, but they should be able to do it. When you make a fist, you can see all my little knuckles. You should be able to see that on your feet too. If you look at my foot, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little knuckles sticking out. If you don't see the little knuckles sticking out of your feet, then it's very important to restore the biomechanics of the foot by rolling on a small hard ball like this one. All I've got done is I've got my heel on the ground and I'm rolling my foot. You can stand when you get better at this, but you want to start by being seated. And all you have to do is roll your little foot back and forth on this ball. And yeah, it hurts a little bit if your foot is really tight. This is also great for plantar fasciitis. After you've rolled where those little knuckles are, move the ball closer and closer to your heel. If the ball is too hard, go to something a little bit bigger like a tennis ball. It might be a little easier for you to start with. But once you can see the knuckles of those toes, you're in good shape. And now you're on for foot exercises. The intrinsic muscles of your feet are really, really small. You can't weight lift with your toes to build the strength up. But for people who have collapsed arches, you can still strengthen up the muscle. You have to do it with balance exercises. Those muscles are so small that proprioceptive things like balance will actually strengthen them. The easiest and best way to strengthen your feet up, stand on one foot. And if you're like, okay, that's kind of easy, then get yourself something like a TheraBand balance board and you stand on it. And if you can see, my foot's wobbling a little bit. As you get better at this, I won't have to put my foot down. You want to get to the point where you can stand like this. When you can get to this, you know that your feet have good balance. It'll also keep you from tripping. So, if I were to make Cinderella's life a happy ever after, the first thing I'd do is I'd make sure that her shoe had a good arch support in it. The next thing I'd make sure is that it was closed-toed. And if she took those shoes off and then was like, wow, my feet hurt, maybe she'd roll on a ball. And that way she'd have a happily ever after.